All right, so we've got a Revit file that's on Canvas. It's a template for you, and it's called Laser Cut Box. And you can see from the elevation here, we've got a couple levels. One of them's not showing up here. We have level 0, level 2, level 1, but level 1's not showing up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my view, plan views, and I'm going to add that in. So we're trying to get a 4-inch cube. And what we have in order to make that is 1/16 inch thick chipboard. And our default is 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. So knowing that, we need to come back into the east elevation. So we're got 0, right? And then we have level 31, 6 inches. We're going to add a 6-inch roof on that to make it 32 feet, because 32 feet in Revit, once we scale it at 1/8, is going to be 4 inches in our chipboard. So the first thing I'm going to do on level 1 is I'm just going to come in, I'm going to make architecture floor, and I'm going to make sure that I'm using my generic 6-inch floor, because 6 inches at 1/8 scale is the size of our material. We have 1/16 inch chipboard. Again, 32 inches is what we need. So I'm going to make a 32 by 32 square. Go to the east elevation. Perfect. Now we need to add some walls, but because we're making this out of cardboard, we're not going to treat it like a normal Revit model. We want to have two sides exactly the same length, sandwiching in the opposing walls. So I'm going to come into wall, architecture. I'm going to make sure I change it to a 6-inch generic. And I'm going to go with pick line for the first two. And I'm going to zoom in. Center line. No, I want finish face exterior. That's why it's not showing up. All right, so now I can tell I want to come in. I got one that comes in from the edge of the floor here, and then on the opposing side, I've got another. Now these are the two where we only want to be inside the space. We don't want to cross over, because when we send it to the laser cutter, we want it to match the thickness and the dimensions. So I'm going to come left to right for this north wall, and I'm going to end it right at this corner. And then I'm going to come right to left for the south wall. And again, I'm going to end it at this corner. All right. So on level 2, we're going to come in with a roof by footprint, and it's going to be a 6-inch roof. There's no slope, and we're just going to pick lines again. I'm going to pick the outer edges of these. Click OK. Now we got a floor, we got a roof, and we've got 4 walls. What did I do wrong? We didn't extend our walls. So rather than go one by one, I can highlight all of them. I could say these are not 20 feet unconnected. These actually go up to level 2. And now we've got everything we need. So this next bit, we're going to need all these views open: north, south, east, west. And you'll see here on the template, there's already a sheet called A101, and it uses an 18 by 32 inch block, and that's because that's the maximum size our laser cutter fits. So it's good to lay it out here to make sure it's going to fit when you put it into the laser cutter. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my level 1 and I'm going to grab my floor. So I'm going to hit tab until it's just the floor. And now quickly I'm going to hold H and I together. And you see I've got this temporary hide isolate. Now the only thing I can see is the floor. Again, this is to get it to the laser cutter. We want to have as many clean lines as possible. But if I skip this next step, every time I reopen the file, it's going to show everything again. So the important thing is where these glasses are, where it says temporary hide isolate, I need to come up and I need to apply it to this view. Now, if I go close this, come back the next day or later the same day, I'm not going to have to hide things again. It's only ever going to show me the floor on level 1. So I'm going to go to level 2. I'm going to find the roof. I'm going to do the same thing, hold H and I at the same time. And apply it to the view. Now I'm only ever going to see the roof from this view. I need to do it for the north. So for the north, you can see this is one of the walls that we did a short wall. So I need to come in and hit tab until it's just that blue line that doesn't go all the way to the edge. These are our walls that are getting sandwiched in between. Hit H and then quickly hit I. Save the view. South, it's going to be the same thing. North and south are going to be our inside bits. East and west, at least the way I've drawn it, are going to be the outside walls. All right, H, then quickly I. But you have to still hold the H while you're doing it. All right, so now I'm only going to see the walls in that view. I'm going to go west. And now this one, you'll see it's the full width. Now it's still a foot short. It's only 31 feet instead of 32 because we have 6-inch roof and a 6-inch floor. I'm going to highlight it. H while I'm holding H, I. Isolate the view. Last one is our east. Make sure I apply it. And now I've got, excuse me, all my views with just one element in each. And now I can start dragging them into my sheet one at a time. So I'm going to start with my floor and my roof because those are the only two that are full 32 by 32. Oh, that was, yeah. All right, so level 2 is drag that in. And I want to have this dashed line here because these are the exact same dimension, so it's giving me center. Once we get to the next ones, it's going to line up our title block. So don't get rid of your title blocks just yet. All right, now I'm going to come to my east, drag that in. You can see now because they're not the full 32 by 32, it's using my title block to line it up. Rinse and repeat. Keep going until you have 6 different squares all on one sheet. All right. So when we trim our chipboard, we're not going to get the full 32 inches. I'm pretty sure it's just 30. I'll double check. So if I come to annotate and I do a detail line, we want to make sure we have at least 2 inches on this side. And we got 4, so we'll be fine. So if you want to keep these just so that you remember what they were, you can. I'm going to come in. I'm going to just say, no, I don't want to see the title block. As long as I remember floor, roof, wall, 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 I can glue it together after the fact. So what we want to do on these is we want to make some openings. You want to put your name, and you can get creative with this. If we wanted to do this, let's say in here as a model line, I'll show you what happens. So if I come in, I create a model line, pick a plane, I'm going to make it this, and now I'm going to make just a series of hexagons. Now what happens when I go to, let's find a view that it's going to be problematic. So from north, if I come to wireframe now, you can see all of a sudden it shows up here. So the easiest way to do this without any cleanup, we're going to go ahead and undo all these model lines. And instead of doing them here in the sheet itself, I'm going to go to annotate. I'm going to make a detail line. And now I can make those same hexagons. But when I go to north or south or east or west, none of it shows up there. If I go to wireframe, well, that was the floor. So let's check from level 2. On level 2, I go wireframe. I'm not going to see anything. Level 1, I'm not going to see anything. So I don't have to hide anything else in these views if I make all my shapes while I'm on the sheet. So you need to make a number of different openings. I don't have that number on the top of my head right now. It's on canvas. But get creative. You want your name in there somewhere, so you can just go to text, type over here, say Scott. I'm just going to click somewhere else. Now I'll try and center it, just using my keyboard, but no, I use this. The downside to using it this way is you don't get the snap lines as easily. So you're kind of eyeballing things. Now, some of these are going to be actual openings. And some of the time, what you're going to want for at least one is just kind of an engraving instead of cutting all the way through. So keep that in mind when you're doing your designs. I'm going to go to detail line. I'm just going to start with a spline here. So the spline is funky. If I draw a straight line, now I'm curving that line. And then when I click again, it's in place. And now I can keep going, making random shapes. And then for the end, if I switch over to tangent, that's not a very good tangent, but it's kind of a harsh angle, but doesn't matter. So something like this could either be an opening or it could just be an engraving. And again, these designs are totally your choice. They don't need to look like a Salvador Dali whale falling off the edge or something. And you got lots of options. Once you go to detail line, you can use all the same shapes you can use other places. So let's just say I'm going to make 1/2 inch wide. rectangle, and now I can copy it. So if it's a 1/2 inch wide, I'm going to come 3/4 inches maybe. So now I've got a series of openings there. You get the point. So what do you do from here after you've done all of your designs? I'm going to leave these blank just for the video so that the video is shorter. So from here, we want to export this as a PDF. I'm going to go File, Export, PDF. You really need to make sure you change it to zoom 100%, otherwise it will throw off your scale. Almost everything else you can leave as it is. Make sure it's saving at a place you want and that you've renamed it something that you'll remember. So now I will click export. And now that's there. So hang on just a minute. All right, so this is a different one that I already imported in. I'm going to delete it and bring in the new one. So it's really important to make sure that you're in inches when you do this. So if you look at the bottom, you can, and you're not seeing something that says millimeters or feet, you just right click it, and come to unit settings. And under units, over here, you can change it to inches. And click OK. And now, where did that one go? Interesting. All right. I'm going to bring in the one I just did. I'm going to say import file. And then I'm going to make sure I preserve the units and then I import line weights. So we're working with inches. We've set Rhino to inches. This should come in cleanly. When you first bring into Rhino, you can just drag things. Once you start typing commands, everything will change. But the first thing I usually like to do in Rhino is come in and you can see when there's more than one thing, it tells you where you are and what you're on. So I'm going to click this hatch because I don't want it. Now I just have my name. If you come over here, you can see I have multiples. We need to get rid of one of them. If we leave them both there, what's going to happen is the laser cutter is going to go over that area twice. And any of the areas where we don't have doubles, like here, it's only going to go over it once. And the difference is basically charring your material. So if you don't want a fire, you have to take the time to go through. There is a select duplicates, delete duplicates function, but it only selects exact duplicates. And you'll see once we get to some of these other walls, like this one, we've got this curve that doesn't go all the way, and this curve that does. So we want to get rid of this inside one. So what's happening is even though we have this flat image coming out of Revit, it still has a front of the wall and the back of the wall. So Rhino thinks there's two lines there because we have a material thickness. So this one, it doesn't matter. You can see they're both the same length. So I just have to delete one of them. Same here. And now is this one. Yeah, this one's the same as well. Fortunately, this is still significantly quicker than doing the same thing in Adobe Illustrator. Illustrator doesn't tell you how many are there, and it doesn't show you which one's shorter and which one's longer. You just have to guess. and keep going until you've gone one too many, and then you click undo. So you can see if I'm zoomed in, you can see the difference. And we want the one that goes corner to corner. We don't want this one anymore. So I can delete that. Next thing I usually do is just highlight everything because most of this is going to be cut. And for a laser cutter, that means red. So I'm going to go ahead and make my display color red. And then I'm going to make my print color also red. I'm going to make my print width hairline. Anything other than hairline, it reinterprets it and it won't cut. It'll turn it into a raster and it'll engrave. All right, so I've got most of that set. Now I've got to decide which bits are going to be my blue lines where I just engrave. So I'm going to go ahead and make it this blob here. I'm going to highlight it all. And again, I'm going to come in here. And this time I'm going to make it blue. So for the laser cutter, blue tells it that I'm going to do an engrave, but that it's going to follow the line. There's two types of engravings. The blue one, the laser follows the line just like it would if it was cutting, but it doesn't go all the way through the material. Black, on the other hand, the laser head goes back and forth and back and forth across the whole thing. It's extremely time consuming. So we're not going to use any black in this project. So now I've got my file in Rhino. I've set my color to cut where I want it to cut. I've set everything to hairline. I've set this to blue. It's also hairline. Now at this point, we're ready to send it to the laser cutter. I don't have a laser cutter at home with me, so we'll watch some other videos and show that in person. But what you're going to do is hit Control P. And I do have the drivers on here, just so you can see it. It's going to be this VLS6.60/75. So that is the actual laser cutter. And if for some reason your image is not there, we'll talk about how to fix that. But we want to make sure that in our viewport, we can do extents, we can do the window. Now you can see it's repositioned it to where it should be. I don't know why this defaulted to millimeters, but let's just say, let's make sure 1 inch is 1 inch. And now we would hit print and we'd have to change a bunch of settings in the actual laser cutter and go from there. I recommend sticking with Rhino unless you are really familiar with Illustrator. It's easier to delete your duplicate lines and also to set your line widths to make sure they cut properly. So that's it. We're going to do this all in class in one day. And then you need to have this file 100% ready to go for the second class so that we can go down to the laser cutter and start making boxes.